want to quickly introduce myself. I am Marissa Stark. I'm with the Kansas City Artists Coalition, and thank you everybody for coming tonight to join us on this info session about all things art in the loop. Tonight I am very happy to have with us Kyle Mullins, who is the art director with Art in the Loop, who will be here to help guide us through the ins and outs, tips and tricks, and just general basics about the application for the visual arts piece of Art in the Loop. In addition, Donna Mandelbaum from the Kansas City Streetcar is also joining us here tonight to talk a little bit about all things streetcar as related to art and Art in the Loop. And we also have two artists from last year joining us tonight to just speak directly to the artist piece and just give you lived experience. Ada Koch is our artist from last year who did the streetcar wrap on the Kansas City Streetcar. And Jessica Rogers is here to speak and answer any questions you might have about the streetcar stops themselves as visual artists. And also just want to thank Angie over from Interurban Art House for helping us out and spreading the word and trying to get as many awesome, viable, vibrant artists out there to apply for Art in the Loop, because it is one of the best public art calls in Kansas City, in my opinion. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Kyle, and let you get started with your presentation.
All right. Hi, everyone. How are you all tonight? I'm actually going to allow Donna to get us started here on our little, can you all see my screen all right? I always get nervous. Okay.
Hey everyone, Donna Mandelbaum with the Kansas City Streetcar Authority. I work alongside Ann Holliday, who can't be here tonight because she has a senior in high school and they have some senior night stuff, very important stuff, but she sends all her best and she pushed Kyle and I forward to take this on, and we're super excited to be here. As Marissa mentioned, Kyle is our art director for this year, Art in the Loop. Thank you, Marissa and Interurban Art House for having us tonight. My role at the Streetcar is communications and marketing director, events. I do everything. I create stickers, whatever needs to be done, I do it. But one of my most favorite parts of my job is working on Art in the Loop every summer. We've been partnered with Art in the Loop since the beginning of the Streetcar's days here. So in 2016 marks our 5th birthday. Happy birthday to us. So we've been doing this for 6 years, and it's evolved every single year. And every year gets bigger and better. As Marissa mentioned, Ada and Jessica were both artists in our program last year. The pandemic did not stop Art in the Loop. It kind of, as the COVID word of the year is, pivoted a little bit and we adapted, but we did not stop art, could not stop the art. So we were pretty proud of that, and we're looking forward to this year. I'm going to be here to answer any questions you have about anything about Streetcar and Art in the Loop. Here to support Kyle, and yeah, so we'll start off, as most of you have probably seen, either on our website, the Art in the Loop website, or the call. This is all about what Art in the Loop is. We provide local opportunities to local artists. It's a great program that really helps encourage and nurture emerging artists, specifically with not only money for their art, but also other opportunities to create art, how to do the business side of art, like entering contracts and negotiating with maybe different property owners. So there's a lot of guidance involved in this program. And also, a lot of times we see that Art in the Loop gives an opportunity to artists to showcase their art in a public setting. And of course, on a streetcar or at a streetcar stop, which not many artists can say they're a part of that. So that is unique in itself. Art in the Loop is a is a foundation with the Downtown Council, which is where Anne Holiday comes from. She's from Downtown Council and Art in the Loop Foundation. And so she's really our fearless leader. Next. So I'm not even sure when I can't remember when I passed this along, but here's a great example of how you can envision your art on a streetcar. So I believe it was 2017 or something. I can't remember. Or 2018. 2018 was the first time we wrapped a streetcar for Art in a Loop. It was with Amy Kligman. It wasn't even part of our wheelhouse at the time. She proposed it. We tried it. It was scary and it was wonderful. The next year came the Monarch streetcar, which was so cute. I mean, it literally moves in the environment as a Monarch caterpillar, and it was a huge hit. And so every year we've learned from our artists on how to wrap a streetcar. What started as something small is grown, and we get really creative with it. So we're super excited to see what kind of ideas come out this year in wrapping one streetcar. And this is where Kyle comes in. So I'm passing it off to Kyle.
I didn't make this little presentation, so I didn't mean to include a giant photo of myself for you all this evening, but it's here and you can enjoy it. My name is Kyle Mullins. I'm the new art director. Just started a mere few weeks ago in this position. I'm just so excited to be joining this team. I'm really passionate about bringing art into public spaces. I myself am a dance artist, and so sort of a little bit of a different viewpoint or perspective coming into the project this year, and I'm really excited to imagine all of your work dancing through the streets of Kansas City. For this year's call for the 2021 Art in the Loop project, we came up with a theme of resilient. And so we're asking artists to respond to that. And I'm going to read a little bit about what we wrote for the call here. So what does an inclusive, equitable, accessible, and vibrant downtown Kansas City look like? What is needed in order for our city to remain resilient, particularly within this present moment? For the 2021 Art in the Loop project, we're looking for artists to respond to these questions and to explore their vision of resiliency. Proposed projects should reflect these questions and ideas in ways that engage and stimulate Kansas City audiences through public art installations. I'm just going to get rid of my little video here. Okay. So this year, at this moment, we are just putting out the call for visual artists. A performance call will be going out within the next few weeks. So at the moment, we've got 4 opportunities available. We were looking at one artist to wrap a Kansas City streetcar. So it'll be one streetcar. We've got the Art Wall, which is a giant billboard-sized art installation at 13th and Grand, which is on that parking garage at Town Pavilion. We're wrapping 6 to 8 Kansas City streetcar stops, which you can see an example of here over on the right of your screen. And then we're looking for one installation to reflect on 816 Day, which is the biggest holiday of the year here in Kansas City, celebrating the 816 area code that happens on August 16th. Imagine that, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means later on. So we'll start here with the streetcar wrap. So we're looking for artists to propose an art installation that will wrap one Kansas City streetcar vehicle with their artwork. So if selected, we're asking for a print ready file. We can get into details of that as needed, to looking at dimensions and all of that. And here you can see a great example of that by, this is Hope and Gratitude by Ada Koch and Glenn North. Ada's on the call with us. And in a moment, I'd love to ask her to just sort of reflect on her experience installing and proposing, creating this beautiful work, these poppies. So for the streetcar wrap, we're looking for one artist or an artist team, maybe a collaborative team, to wrap one streetcar. And that selected artist or team will be paid a fee of $2,500. And then Art in the Loop, we will pay for the printing, installation, and then the removal of the artwork at the end of its life. We've got a few examples here. As Donna mentioned earlier, in 2018, the first streetcar wrap was by Amy Kligman. And I believe that the image that you can see below was a collage that she had created and then photographed. And then that photograph was blown up and installed on the car that you can see here. We were talking in a meeting the other day about, as the time has gone by, we've found ways to cover more of these white spaces on the car. You can kind of see that over here on the Monarch streetcar. You can see a little bit more of that has been covered. So this was the second year Macrocosmos Caterpillar by Christina Barolos and Amanda Gahan. And I think this would be a great moment to call on Ada to talk to us a little bit, but I wanted to point out before I do that she was actually able, or they, this team was actually able to bring some of the installation up into the windows of the car. And so there are really some nice outside of the box thinking here. Of course, there are some limits to how much of those windows that we can cover. And then there was some of the artwork actually installed on some of the seats inside the car as well. So it was a really immersive experience, really. Ada, would you mind sort of unmuting and joining me for a moment to talk about your experience?
Sure. Oh, this was just a great experience for me. So this was a collaboration with Glenn North, who is a poet. He's the 18th and Vine Poet Laureate in Kansas City. We'd been working together for about 5 or 6 years before this project. And it was really important to us to get to see poetry in an unusual spot. I mean, who thinks about, oh, I'll get on the streetcar and read some poetry. So that became a really big part of it. And not only was his poem on the streetcar up above, so as people are holding on, they can look up and read it. But we printed little postcards that had some poppies and I may have a picture and the poem on it. And it was so cool because the streetcar folks were very nice about putting stamps on it. So people who rode the streetcar could actually get on, pick up one of these poems. And the gist of this is very positive. It's called Standing Strong, an Ode to KC, and it was about sharing hope, sharing gratitude with other people. And originally when we thought of the project, it was supposed to be in regards to veterans in World War I, and then COVID hit, and this whole idea of gratitude became, you know, healthcare workers and teachers and your neighbor and whoever was helping you out through this tough time. So sharing those postcards became even more exciting.
How beautiful. Thank you. I just, you know, we can get into a little bit more of the specifics on our side in a moment, but I'd love to hear a little bit about, you know, what did you know about, you know, creating an artwork and this size on, you know, vinyl to wrap this giant behemoth that, you know, drives through the streets? Like, how was that experience for you? Right.
I knew zero. And the committee was super helpful. I did enlist the help of a graphic designer to help me who had some computer knowledge. But the committee was super helpful in offering suggestions on how big we could take it on the outside. And, you know, they had experience on what it was going to look like. And so it was really, really a team effort. They helped us through. And it was a couple iterations, I admit, but it worked so great. And then Donna and the streetcar folks came up with the idea of putting the poppies on the seats. So there was actually a poppy chair that people could sit on. And I think that's one of the most fun things is when you get on, you can sit in the poppy chair. So they really helped with that and helped guide us through all the logistics.
What about the poppies that come up onto the window glass? Was that a part of your original proposal, or was that something that
that was new, and they allowed us to do that? We had asked about it, and then they said, yeah, we can do it as long as, you know, we think of safety, and they had to have a special kind of vinyl to do that. So we learned a lot about vinyl But it
You
was
can see
very
it's like,
exciting.
it's perforated here, so you can kind of see through it, I
Right.
believe. Well, it's a
Right,
great
so when
reminder
you're
to sort of,
sitting in the streetcar, you could see through it, but on the outside, it has that full effect that
uh-huh.
that the artist wants. So
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
It's really magical.
Yeah.
And it's a great reminder of sort of, you know, thinking larger than the proposal. And if it gets too big, we can tame you down.
Yeah.
Dream big, dream big. Thank you, Ada.
Yeah.
So then we're going to move on to talk about the second opportunity right now, which is the art wall. This is down at the Town Pavilion parking garage at 13th and Grand. This is Q by Larry Thomas. And you can see that this is quite a big moment for some big visibility. So for this opportunity, artists are invited to propose a two-dimensional work to be displayed on the billboard, and it will be displayed for somewhere between 12 and 18 months, depending on how much we like it. I'm just kidding. And so again, if accepted, we'll ask for a print ready file, which again, we can, you know, discuss with you at a different point. But it's really quite large. So the billboard itself is 36 by 70, and then the usable space is just a little bit smaller than that. And for this opportunity, the artist will be paid a fee of $1,000. And again, we as Art in the Loop, we pay for the printing, installation, and then the removal of the work. We've got some lovely examples here. So you can see here really like to scale how big this beautiful billboard here. And below, I think these are some of the proposed images for use on the billboard. And again, here you've got some really fantastic images of the billboards or the billboard to life. Yeah. And then our third opportunity at the moment, we've got, we'll be selecting 6 to 8 artists to install two-dimensional work at the Kansas City Streetcar shelters at the stops. And there's 2 different sizes. One's quite a bit larger, about 61 inches by 177. And then there's a smaller shelter that's about 59 inches by 83.5. If those dimensions mean anything to you visual people. It's hard for me to imagine measurements in that way, but we'll show you some pictures here in a moment. So there's a lot of options here. The one thing that we really need artists to be thinking about is there has to be a level of transparency for all of the installations for safety, security reasons. And so coverage can be up to 75%, but there must be some transparency in the proposed images. And then we want you to think about, this is a 2-sided installation, right? So you have the front facing, the street facing side of the shelter, and then you have the back of that glass as well that faces the sidewalk, buildings. So it's really a 2-sided thing. And again, there's a level of transparency that needs to be included within the proposal. And we can think about that. I can show you some examples of how that has sort of taken shape. It can be like sort of an organic shape. It doesn't need to be this exact rectangle that fits the glass paneling. And we want you to think about the ambient light. I think there's a really great example. I think it's the next slide about how light impacts the installations, and when work shines through, you know, almost stained glass style on some of them. And then for these, the 6 to 8 artists that are chosen for this opportunity will be paid a fee of $500. And again, we'll pay for all the nuts and bolts that goes along with the installation and removal. So yeah, this is the one. So this is So Long a Good Luck by Megan Gainey. And on the left here, you can see the original design that the artist created. And over here on the right, you can see the finished product that we ended up with. My predecessor and team, what they ended up with on this is one of the smaller shelters. And you can see, I mean, this image is just stunning with the light shining through here. I looked it up the other day. It's called transmitted light. if you want to feel fancy and use that new term with your friends at a party. And you can see how we came, or the artist came from this work here to something that included that level of transparency and really allowed for that ambient light to make it a whole experience at the streetcar. I mean, I would love having my morning coffee in this beautiful multicolored light here. And these are all printed on a vinyl that's of varying levels of opacity. I love this slide because we can really show you the whole process here. So this is a work called Hold by Robert Castillo. You got the original work here up on the top left corner, and you see that gray background. And then through the process with the team, we removed that gray background, sort of make it a transparent or clear. You can see it being installed here in the lovely team installing that vinyl. And then the finished product here that takes place over those 4 glass panels. This is the larger of the streetcar shelters. And so you can see where it really came from the original design to the finished product, and how it really incorporated the glass, the nature of the structure itself, right? Instead of just covering up the whole structure, you're able to really see the building behind it or the street through it. It's another great, beautiful example, Out of Sight, but on My Mind by Ari Bonner. And again, sort of making the image more translucent. I think it just adds so much to the experience, as well as makes the car a little safer. But here you can see, so this is the back side looking towards the street, and then here's the front side looking from the street towards the sidewalk.
And I'd like to add that this was a great project, this particular art project, because from where she started from, and we experimented with different types of vinyl, and that's stuff that the Art in a Loop team and the artist did together with our printer and installer. They're a local printer and installer, and they worked with us to find the really right material to portray what the artist is trying to portray in their art. And so we had never used this specific vinyl before. It's like a
Etched.
Yeah, it has like this glittery type of flow to it, so it looks, and it was exactly what she was going for. Because at first we tried a different vinyl and it didn't have the same impact. So that's another example of this program where we will work really closely with the artist to make sure we get it right, and it comes out the way that they envisioned it. So
thank you. And as Donna also put in the chat, if you have questions or thoughts that come up throughout our presentation, feel free to throw them into the chat box, and then we can come back to them at the end, and we'll open it up for some questions and discussion. Just don't ask me any hard ones. And here's another example of just kidding, you can ask me questions, of planaria passages. And again, you can see where all of that white space became sort of like this clear translucent around all of the color. And just the way it plays with light is so beautiful. And you can see too that really clearly here that it's 4 panes of glass with, I think, just a very tiny little 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch or something like that in between each of the panels. And here I'd love to, Jessica, I didn't get to ask you beforehand if you'd be willing to chat with us a little bit about your work and your process working on your design for the shelter.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everybody.
This is Jessica Rogers.
Yeah, nice to meet everyone. Yeah, this is my piece I proposed last year. You can see kind of up in the left corner, that's like the artwork that I submitted to Art in the Loop. It was this piece, like, yeah, exactly as it is. So when the art director from last year reached out to me, they did like immediately ask me, how opaque do you want it? How transparent do you want it? Like, how do you visualize this looking? They definitely like encouraged staying true to the original artwork, which I really appreciated, because I feel like sometimes you never know. You like submit your artwork and it's like, it could look totally different. But they, that was a goal of theirs, to keep it as true as possible. And I went with more of like an opaque version, I guess, in seeing these other examples and you guys just talking about the different vinyl. So mine kind of stayed more true to a very 2D flat experience. Like you couldn't really, I don't think that you can see through it from the back. I don't have any back pictures of it myself, so I'm not really even sure, but this is exactly how I wanted it to look. So I'm happy with it. And then we left the negative space, like all the white space around the paintings. That's where we left it transparent so that there was like the safety and stuff like that see through them. And I think I wanted it this way because they are 4 separate paintings. If they were one image, I probably would have gone with a more transparent or more of like a full bleed image. But because they were different pieces, I kind of wanted them to stay true to that. And yeah, I had a great experience. It was great working with the team. I'm so excited to see the artwork for this year that gets selected. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica. And I think this is a great example of showing, being creative with how to sort of reach that percentage of transparency that's needed. That there's just a lot of different ways to approach that and to think about that and to envision that while staying true to what your vision is for your work and how you want it to be shared. So thank you. And I think this is the last of the shelter images. This is My Dungeon Shook by Hubbard Savage. And you can see here that here's the original artwork. And it was sort of divided between the 4 panels, that 3 of them ended up with this level of transparency. And then the portrait on this panel remained, I think, completely opaque, just like Jessica was saying. So there is, options and just ways to sort of like creatively problem solve through the sort of transparency needs or the requirements there. And then this is a fun one. This is one of the smaller stops, and this is actually an augmented reality experience. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe down here there's like a QR code or a way to access the work through your phone. And this became an augmented reality, really.
You want me to talk about that, Kyle? You want me to talk about my piece?
Oh, I'd love that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I wanted to create a piece that was actually interactive so that people could actually interact with the piece that was on display instead of just looking at a still picture and going, oh, pretty picture. So what I created in the lower right corner is a type of QR code. You would download the app and you would scan not only the image, but also that code. And on your phone, it will come to life. And then with your phone, you could actually move into the image and move around and watch, on the image on the left, you go from winter and then it fades into spring. And then the image on the right, you just hear and see sped up traffic. So, but you can also move your phone into the image and see and pick out the people crossing the street and the cars crossing the street and so forth. So it was a lot of fun. I had like over, I don't know, 700 or 800 downloads of the app and the scans. So I was able to track the actual interaction, but this whole experience was great. I worked with Alpha Graphics to create the pieces for me, and they installed it, and it was really a wonderful experiment for me, and I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this.
Thank you, Angie, for sharing that. I'd love to know, what was there at that time? Was there anything in the call that was sort of prompting you to think about this in terms of an augmented reality, or was that just...
No, actually, what prompted me to do this was a friend of mine who actually did this very one, She wrapped it in a sweater. She encouraged me to apply, and I didn't want to apply with just a still photograph. I wanted to create something that actually moved as well, to make it more active, to make it an active photograph as opposed to a still photograph.
How exciting. Sounds like a great way to miss your streetcar and be late to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Michael Kelly in the chat had a question, Angie, if you don't mind. If you could just speak more about how that tracking worked. And I guess, Donna, I'd like to know, did Art in the Loop or Kansas City Streetcar also track any of that sort of engagement, or is that just the artist that was tracking?
Well, Angie could go first, and then I'll talk about the Art in the Loop side.
Great.
Okay. What was my question again?
Oh, just wanting to know a little bit more about how tracking that engagement.
Tracking the image. So the way it worked, it's actually, this is a very simple way for augmented reality. I mean, you can get really in depth on doing 3D modeling and so forth. This, I created the image, I uploaded it to Zapper, Zap, I think it's zap.com, and they created the algorithm as well as the QR code. So they actually had to map the whole image along with that QR code, so that when you scanned it, you do have to have the full image in there with that code. So I didn't do any of the coding. The program did, which helped me a lot as I was experimenting with this.
Thank you.
As far as from Art in the Loop and the streetcar side of things, we do try the best that we can in a public setting on how to, if our pieces are being, people are engaging with them. A lot of times the way we do it, and we did not do this during COVID, is through our music performances and performance arts events that we do around our art. So for example, this piece, we had a couple of music performances take place that summer, and we were able to track how many people attended those performances and engaged with the art then. We also take our streetcar ridership numbers and, look at it by the stop and see, okay, in this month, how many people use the stop, and we have that. But a lot of times, that just gives us a fraction, I think, of who's being exposed to this piece. We also do a lot of work on social media from both Art in the Loop and the streetcar to engage the community with individual artists and their art. So kind of trying to do all sorts of ways to get this out there. And Michael brought up a great point in the chat earlier on how to connect the community around this to the artists and the art. And that is something we always want to do, and we want to keep doing in it and find really cool ways to do that. Before the streetcar came along, Art in the Loop did a lot of their art on private property or different buildings, and they engage with the property owners that way. Now we are the streetcar is the biggest property owner that they engage with. So we have to then maybe take that next step on, for example, like with Angie's piece here, how do we engage this piece and this artist to the coffee shop down the block and the restaurant down the block? So we're always trying to think of ways, because not only is this installing amazing pieces of art in public settings, but getting the community connected with it as well.
Did that answer your question, Michael? All right, and
we also asked a great question, kind of going back to that other slide, Kyle. You can see it really well here too, that overhang. Is that an option for the artists to incorporate into their design outside of just what we've seen so far on the kind of, what is this, the sidewalk facing, street facing side of the stop. Well, what about the overhang? Can they incorporate that?
So there are overhangs on both sides of the stop. And yeah, Brittany, I think, was the one that asked this. No one's designed for that yet. So doesn't mean it's not off the table. The piece you're looking at right now, that art is actually permanent art that was funded through the city's 1% for Art program. And so we have art on the overhang of our stops, on our 3 stops around the city market, as well as pieces down at Union Station. So that's permanent public art. But the other overhangs and our windscreens do not have any art on them. And the next slide that Kyle has shows some of the,
here you can see
out. Yeah.
where Nazanin brought some of the artwork onto that windscreen here. And I mean, comparing this to what we saw from Jessica, I mean, this is a very totally different take where it's almost all, this see-through with this art that's sort of incorporated just like right into the view of the surrounding environment. And I just love the endless possibilities that really can be imagined here for these installations. All right, let's get to the really fun stuff. The reason you came. Let's talk through some of the guidelines and then we'll briefly look at the application. I believe that Donna put a link for the application as well up in the chat if you want to pull that up for yourself. Just some things to point out. We definitely encourage, I think this goes back to something that Michael asked in the chat as well, sort of thinking about ways to partner with local nonprofits or businesses that could sort of expand or broaden the reach or the impact of your project's proposal. Who is eligible? Professional visual artists or artist teams. Art students are eligible and you must be at least 18 years of age and you need to be living within a 50-mile radius of Kansas City. The artwork is juried by a selection panel. So it's not just me deciding which one of my friends get to make art this year. There will be a full panel of arts professionals, community members that will be adjudicating all of your proposals. All right, so criteria. So the work is sort of envisioned to be temporary or semi-permanent. I think all of these calls that we're looking at tonight are much more on the semi-permanent side. These installations will be up for some months. Surprising, unconventional, thoughtful, and fun. I think the really key word here for me is engaging to the public and work that really activates the environment. So I think definitely recommend taking a little trip down along the streetcar route and take a look at some of the shelters or the art wall and really think about its place in the city. The work needs to be appropriate for all ages, of course, since it's very public. Nothing polemic or polarizing, so nothing attacking anyone or off-putting, shall we say. And then we want everything to be responding to that theme of resilience that we talked about at the beginning of this presentation. Originality, and of course we want to see that you are an experienced artist and whatever that means for you. We'll see that in your application. We've got some requirements here. So we need to collaborate with the property owners, as Donna was saying. The main property owner at this moment is the Kansas City Streetcar, but there's also the city and then local businesses along the route. That we handle sort of the installation and removal and will be scheduled by us. And that we do ask that selected artists write like a final report at the end of the project. So if selected, the artist will be asked to provide some material like images and information for our website, as well as for use in PR and marketing. We'll ask you for a written impact statement at the end of the process. We ask artists to attend the kickoff event and the closing reception, which we'll look at our tentative calendar for all of that. As you know, the world's still sort of in this influx, and it's like a whole new kind of influx now that we're like kind of opening, anyways. And then we will also host a few art walks, which are sort of guided tours along the route to look at all of the artwork. And we ask that the artist attend at least one of those. And then what will we provide? Web presence. We're going to market the event. We're going to install signage for each installed artwork. And then, of course, help you with logistical support and all of that sort of coordination. So again, you don't need to come with a doctorate in vinyl. And then we will create a printed catalog of the 2021 project. And then we will take your work down when it's time. So here's a little overview of the schedule. I know this year feels a little tight because these applications are due on May 12th, which is 1 week from now. So get working. And then very quickly, our panel will convene. We'll make our selections. In the month of May, we will send out contracts. And then we'll also be, in the next coming weeks, releasing a call for performance artists, so music, dance, theater, etc. All outside and nothing on the streetcar this year, but stay tuned for some more information about that. The artwork will all be installed in May, June. We're planning it to tentatively kick off the summer on July 7th. And then throughout the summer, like I said, the 2 art walks, which you'll be asked if selected to attend at least once. Then the artwork will be coming down in October, and then the closing reception on tentatively again on November 3rd. So how to apply? I am going to, you see this now that I've switched to the website? So you come to our main page here, artintheloop.com. You can click on our opportunities, or also this big red banner. You can't miss it. It'll talk you through pretty much everything that we talked through with the theme, eligibility, a lot of the images, or maybe all of the images and more of past artwork. And then the dimensions here. And then really quickly, something that wasn't in the slides, Donna, I'm wondering if you could just talk to us real quick about the one proposal that we'll be choosing to respond to 816 Day.
Oh, yeah. So we thought we would put out this prompt about 816 Day. And what does 816 mean to you? And 816 Day, there's several, for several years, there's been some community events, a lot of social media push to highlight our area code. So we thought we'd have one streetcar stop that's dedicated to 816. So what does that mean to you? And we have, access to different websites that have done events to give you some ideas, but it's very open, basically, what does Kansas City mean to you? So we're excited to see what kind of ideas come out of that, if any. It's okay if it doesn't, but we thought we'd put it out there and see if it spurs anything on.
Thank you. And then down here at the bottom, there's links. Got application guidelines if you'd like something in your hand that can kind of walk you through all of that was on the slides tonight. And then the actual application is here. The usual
Hey, Kyle,
information. Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I think I'm still seeing your presentation.
Oh, man. I'm talking about something that's not in front of you.
Maybe, or maybe it's
embarrassing.
Just me.
Here we go.
That's it.
So really quickly, back what you missed. See, you always got to mess up something. This is our main page. You can click here. That'll take you through everything that I was just talking to you about and you had no idea. Guidelines, criteria, etc. 816 Day that Donna was just speaking about. Got guidelines, and then the application link down towards the bottom, and then a big bold red reminder that these are due next Wednesday. And then here's what the application looks like. So you'll just populate these fields, asking for uploading CV, some previous work, images, selecting which of the opportunities that you are applying for or proposing. And then you can attach sort of project description and then your concept for either the streetcar wrap, the art wall, the stop, or the 816 day. Ask you to write a little bit about sort of your intentions and how you would like the public to engage with your work. And then some diversity questions here down towards the bottom. And then I believe that's the end of the slideshow. I think there is just a slide with our email addresses on there, but we can throw those into the chat for you. And so if you want, we can open it up to some questions, conversation. If anyone would like to ask us anything about the current opportunities in the call for artists. Great.
Wow,
What a thorough presentation we must have given.
So good that there are no questions in the chat. But I think Michael just unmuted, maybe.
I'll throw in one question just for the sake of cutting through the silence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
It says that there's a requirement, an age requirement of at least 18 years. Is there any sort of like formal like educational requirement or anything like that, or is it really kind of meant to be kind of open-ended, be at least 18, but kind of open-ended, kind of beyond that?
Yes. So there, as long as you're 18, you are eligible. Of course, we are looking for, professional artists or, professional track student artists, but, it's an open call. So we will certainly review anything that comes our way evenly and fairly.
Also, if you're thinking about wrapping a streetcar with art, and we talked about having print ready files, in the call, there's a layout for you to put your ideas on it as very basic, like a PDF. But once we get to that next stage, we do have the actual art files and specs so that you can design your art to that. And then also this installer and printer we use, they have a graphic designer on staff that will work with you to make sure the files are fitting within the specs of this 77 foot vehicle, 78,000 pound machine. So a lot of those little technical things you don't really have to worry about. We will help you figure all that out.
Thank you, Donna. That's a great point. So don't panic about, trying to already understand how the installation process will work. That's something that we'll certainly be in discussion with you about. And as you've seen from hearing our artists talk, there's sort of a process to that too, and the artwork will evolve throughout those discussions. And just for your reference, I put my contact information in the chat, and then also Ann Holliday, our program director, her email as well.
Also, Brittany had brought up a point about the overhangs on the stops. And you did see an example of Ada's Hope and Gratitude poppies inside the streetcar. You can think about that inside of the streetcar too. There's different places in there. There's a ceiling, there's chairs, there's walls. So we did several years ago, we had an artist that her art was on the ceiling of the streetcar. We were like, I don't know how this is gonna work, but we'll figure it out. And it was really impactful. And that artist, her art was noticed and is now a piece of hers is hanging in the Crossroads Hotel. So it does give, this program gives a lot of exposure to artists to get, you know, other things going, other projects going. But my point being, you know, think about other elements if you want to. And we're all up for outside of the box thinking.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'd like to emphasize that. I think public art can be very, very intimidating at first. You think, oh, I have to be working with an architecture firm or something to know how to do this. And I think the committee is really great at not only helping guide you through it, but not taking control of your art. I mean, they're very respectful in wanting you to keep the integrity of what you designed.
Any other questions? This is your time. There are no silly questions. Somebody else out there might be thinking the very same thing.
Mhm.
So don't hesitate. Obviously, you have the contact information for Kyle and Ann if you run into any glitches along the way. Try to not submit the hour before the deadline. That's just my friendly advice. You know, I hope that you guys get some questions in here too. This is the moment to pick everybody's brains. It's a good chance. Don't be shy.
And not to throw any of our previous artists under the bus, but I'm sure they'd be happy to answer a question for you too if you have something specific about their process and their approach and etc.
I do have a question regarding to that now that you mention it. Like, actually, that was a question that I have for somebody that already did this. How's the process of getting your art out there? Like, especially working with you guys, what's the process of everything?
It's one of our artists. We want to kind of talk about how that sort of like an overview or
As far as getting it on the streetcar stop or what?
Correct. Yes. I'll apologize. First of all, I just want to say hi to everybody. And I got to the meeting a little late. I was at work, so I kind of missed like at least 20 to 30 minutes of the meeting. So that's why I'm making this question, and I'm apologize for that.
So for me, it was I pretty much arranged everything. So as soon as I was told what stop I was on, when I should install, given all the deadlines, I had sent my artwork into the printers, and I was on the phone with the printers talking about logistics of the type of vinyl that they're going to print it on, how well will it work, what size. And then when it was ready, the printers actually came out, cleaned the streetcar stop, and installed it for me. So that was the process for me. And then for uninstall, I was given a date for to deinstall the piece. So I went down and I pulled the vinyl off of the streetcar stop. So so that was for me. I pretty much kind of took care of installation and deinstallation.
Got you. Thank you so much for answering my question.
And we've actually learned a lot. Every year we learn a little bit more. So now we, with the Art in a Loop, we take care of installing and removing. We felt like it was a lot of work, you know, for an artist, I mean, to do that. So we have taken that off their plates. In the presentation tonight, we didn't have an example, but Angie Jennings did bring up another art piece that was installed by a friend of hers the year before her piece, and it was the streetcar shelter sweater, and it was a three-dimensional piece, and that it was awesome. It was, and it spurred on other pieces of art around the stop, but that was not vinyl, and we had to think about creatively how that piece was going to hang at that stop. And luckily the artist and her husband are super creative, and I believe he's like an architect, so that was super helpful. But
That's
again,
not fair.
hey, it worked and it was awesome. And so that was 3-dimensional. I know the call says 2-dimensional, and that's usually what we see, but here I am, I'm like, bring
Right.
your ideas.
I think 2-dimensional is what we can like promise to accomplish.
Correct.
Right.
Mhm.
And, you know, if you've got a great idea sort of burning in you for something that's more dimensional, submit it. Let's see. Hi,
Yep.
Shelley. It's nice to see your face. It's been a while.
I
Hi,
know, I'm thinking the
Shelley.
same thing. I have a quick question. You know, the streetcar, is there like a template to use to lay out
Yes.
within the submissions? And
I believe it's in the call. There is
Okay.
a template. And then I also have more detailed art files and specs that the artist can have as well. But I believe there is a template already in the call.
okay, I haven't looked at the call, and
Shelley.
I know.
Come on,
But
Shelley.
there's another call on call for entry. I think that's billboards though, isn't it? That's a Crossroads bill. Maybe that's
Oh, yeah.
that's due on the 10th. So this is this is Art in the Loop, which is
Yeah, don't talk
Yeah.
about that here, Shelley. Wrong
I'm
meeting.
sorry, I'm plugging the wrong thing.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Crap.
More art, the better.
Yeah. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
I
I have a question. Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Brittany.
Oh, my bad. I came in a little bit late, but the mediums, do you guys take any type of medium, like artwork?
So I think, you know, like we were saying, we can promise that we can accomplish a 2-dimensional installation. And then if you're thinking of something more 3-dimensional, then let's have a chat about it. And, you know, we like big ideas and big dreams, but we can't necessarily make promises about that. Is that helpful for you?
Because I'm just curious because I draw on wood, so I don't know if that would be like in that field or whatnot.
I think Donna and I both just made the same face.
I think I can kind of help Brittany. Maybe like if you just do your rendering, your drawing, and submit the drawing, it probably won't be. I mean, they might be willing to work around trying to figure out how to wrangle the wood element, but there is a safety capacity and in the way that the glass needs to be presented. So there is a requirement for some transparency. But they may be able to translate your drawing on wood into a vinyl rendering that would have the transparency. So I do think you should submit despite medium, because they're so good. I will just reiterate this. I know they've all said it, but they're so good about helping the artists work through and problem solve. So I think no matter what, like they said, dream big, think big, be creative, submit. And if they have questions, they're so good about reaching out to you and just kind of helping you work through how to make it as true to your real work as possible.
I think I have a question.
Great.
Go for it.
Okay, so is digital art allowed? Like, let's say, can I submit something? I mean, I do digital art, but like, can I submit that? Is that allowed? Am I able to do that? And is there a topic that we have to choose, or is just like whatever we kind of like try to draw and show you guys about our art? Is there a topic in that specific that we have to follow, or?
Yeah, the call is themed, and that you can find that on the call itself at artintheloop.com/opportunities. So the call this year is centering around the idea of resilience, sort of thinking about our current moment and coming through these past months and into what's next. And then as far as digital art, I mean, I would say that, I mean, Angie's augmented reality was a form of digital art. And so I think that there is potential for, just like with Brittany's question about the drawing on the wood, I think there's always potential for making something work. And I think the idea is that you should submit what you want to submit. And then if we would like to work with your project, then we can work with how to best scale that to make sense for the streetcar or the streetcar shelters or the art wall.
Thank you.
I was going to ask you a question, Donna, just really quickly about how are the actual streetcar shelters themselves chosen and paired with artists?
Great question. Sometimes artists, when they are selected, we will ask if they have a preference on location, and sometimes they do. Other times, because we, like at the streetcar, we know the pattern and the energy on the route and at the stops. And when we see a piece, we kind of feel like we know where that piece would really work. I don't know if that makes sense, but for example, Robert Castillo's piece, we just knew that that was at the Power and Light stop. It would be so impactful there. There's, you know, controversy back and forth about Power and Light stop and his piece, and being there really sends a really powerful message. So we kind of work with the artists to figure out which stop would fit really well. So it's a collaborative process.
Mm-hmm. So there's a really deep partnership with Art in the Loop and the streetcar.
Yes, and then sometimes we have two shelters that are smaller pieces, and maybe a piece was specifically designed for that space too. And I think Megan Gainey's piece was specific for that square, so that kind of worked out.
So go, you know, poke around the route and see what you're inspired by. Sorry, Marissa, it looks like you're about to jump in.
No, I was just going to say, for anybody that came late, we are recording the session and we will be putting it up on oodles of different resources for you, both through the Kansas City Artists Coalition's website and Interurban Art House and their various platforms. So if you are just really struggling, obviously contact Kyle and Ann at Art in the Loop, or you can rewatch this session and hopefully answer any of those like extra questions for anybody that came in a little bit late. I do want to be respectful of everybody's time too, and we're right at that hour marker. So if there's like one last question that anybody wants to jump in with, or if Kyle or Donna, you want to have any parting thoughts, maybe remind us when those apps are due.
May 12th, next Wednesday. It's coming up. I'm sorry.
We want to see all of your art.
Yes. I say question in the...
Brittany, I would reach out to Ann about that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, Brittany, you asked about an application. Yeah, just contact Ann. She'll help you.
This is the night of Brittany's, by the way. There's 3 of you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Kyle, for joining us tonight. Donna, Ada, thank you, Angie, for jumping in on the fly
thank you,
there.
artists.
I just appreciate everything. Angie, thank you so much for helping us amplify this info session to your artists over at Interurban Art House. And I can't wait to see what comes up on that line this year. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone, so much.